All right, so I'm going to, as I mentioned last week, I'm going to introduce you guys to GitLab. I'll just do a basic introduction to GitLab, so that as I did mention, it is just the same thing as GitHub, but you just need to create an account. And let me just go ahead and share my screen. See this. Share the screen. So for GitLab, again, just come to gitlab.com. Once you go to gitlab.com, you can get a free trial. You can just sign in, create an account for basically just a free trial because you already have GitHub. So sign in, create an account with GitLab. Once you create the account, now you can sign in. The signing in, you'll use a username or an email and just a password, okay, and a password. So once you sign into GitLab, it will bring you to an interface like this. So this is your home page, right? Now this project isn't supposed to be here. I created this project, but it will bring you to a homepage. Now on your homepage, you can create what we call a project. Now projects in GitLab, it is synonymous to your repositories, right? It is synonymous to your repositories in GitHub. So in GitLab, you say you want to create a project. So for this, you can create a new project, and you can create it from either blank, or you can use a template, right? So if I wanted to create a blank project, so I can create that. Now for GitLab, it will give you what we call you will have to assign a project name, which is the same thing as your repository name. So maybe I want to create a repository for AWS, maybe S3 bucket. So if I type it here, it is also gonna give that as a project name, right? Now this is your workspace. It will automatically assign your a workspace. So workspace can either be on a user level or on a group level. Okay, and I'll show you how to do that. Right, you can tag, you can put a target. What kind of project are you trying to do? So GitLab is very smart it can configure everything for you in the background, right? And we'll see how that happens. You can visibility again. You can either create a private project or a private repo if it was in GitHub, or a public repo. You can initialize it with a README, right? So let's say we want to create a project like that. So we can create a project by S3. So now once we do that, it is now going to create a project for us, and it initializes it with a README, and that is the README for GitLab. Okay, so we have created one project here. Now the same thing as GitHub. If we want to clone it, we can again clone the code. From here, go to code. We can clone it with either SSH or HTTPS. So this is a similar thing. The branches, it initializes the main branch as your default branch, right? Now you can add files using this. You can create a new file, you can upload, or you can create a new directory. In this repository, you can create a new branch. If I wanted to create a branch, right now I just have main. If I wanted to create a new branch, I can create a new branch here. And I can also create a tag for my project. So right now I have 0 tags. So with this, I can create a tag for this project if I'm working from here. Let's say I add a new file in this particular project, and I can tag it. Again, I'll have to use semantic versioning. Okay, semantic versioning. So I've created a project. Now if I go back to home right here, so I'll see that I have 2 projects, right? These 2 projects, I had already created a group, but I'm going to show you what this dev is. So I've created these 2 projects so I can access these projects. These are standalone projects. Now I can create groups. So you'll find that at work, you might have your cloud team, you can have the platform team, you can have a group of developers, you can have a group of HR or management or contractors. So you can create groups, right? You can create groups. So let's say I have a group of infrastructure team. So I can create a new group, right? I can create a new group, and this group, I can say it is the infra group. So once I create that infra group, then that group can be created. Visibility for that group is private. So leaving it private, it just means that only authorized people that I invite to the group, these are the only people that will be able to see this group or to be part of this group. And what is the role? What role will they have? The role now for whoever is creating a group. I'm a DevOps engineer, so I can leave that role there. Now, who will be using this group? if it's my company or team, right? If it's my company or team, then I can do it. What is this group? What will this group be used for? So I can select that, then I can invite members. I can add members to my team, so they will be part of this group. But if it is just you, like this is personal repo, so I can just say it is just me, right? It is just me who is going to use it. What will this group be used for? I want to learn Git Basic, or I want to store my source code. Then I can create the group. So now with this group, I have a group called infra. Now in this particular group, I can create subgroups, right? Subgroups meaning now in the infrastructure group, I can create either subgroups or I can create projects. I can create repositories under this group. Okay, I can create repository under this group. Now, if I go back home and I go to my project, and let's say I want to create a new project. Now, if I want to create a new project and I want to create it on a project like that blind, so I can choose, right? I can choose where I want this project to be associated with. I wanted my project to be within the infra group, right? I'm creating this project for the infrastructure team. Then I will say, I want them to build a VPC. So that will be my project name. It's private. I can create that particular project. Right? So once I create this particular project, now this project lives within the infrastructure group, right? It lives within the infrastructure group. So if I go to, that is my project that I've created. If I go back home and I look at my groups, now I have my infrastructure group. If I look at my infra group, now I have one project that can be managed. So one group might have 20, 30 projects that are managing, like 20, 30 repositories. So it is only members of this group that have access to this repository, right? So if I go back again or go back home and have a group of developers, these are another group, developers. For developers, maybe they have these two repositories that they are managing. Okay? So in GitLab, this is how groups are managed, or repositories or projects are managed. So easier way is you create groups, then you assign those particular projects to different groups, and only members of that group have access to the different projects. Okay, so I go back home, I go back to my groups, or if I just go back home, it is going to show me all the projects that I have. And this project, so it shows you where it lives, which group it belongs to, and that is the project name, right? So I have two projects that live in the dev namespace or the dev group, that these are the project names. Okay, so if I go back to the infra project right here, so that is now the project view. Within this project view, you can manage activities, right? You can look at activities. What happened within that particular project? If there are any push events, merge events, issues, comments, wikis, design, or team, right? There are no activities. Now you can look at members, right? I can look at members. The only members within this project, the only members is this, right? And the role here is owner. Now I can invite members. I can invite members to this particular group. So for example, I can go here and I can say, I want to invite Kennedy. Right. I want to invite Kennedy to this particular group. Now, what role are they am I inviting them as? Am I inviting them just as a guest? And you can read more about mission as a guest, or as a reporter, or as a developer. A developer means they can push pull, they can do pull requests and all that, or as a maintainer. So a maintainer has more permission, or am I inviting them as the owner? So you can invite people and give them permission. What permission do they know? So you can read more about permission here. It will give you the permission for every role. So let's say I invite Kennedy as a developer, right? So expiration, I will leave it empty because I don't want them to have an expiration. So I can invite. So once you invite that, now we have this member who has been invited, but the member has been granted access, but they're coming in, their role is as a developer. Yeah. They have now been invited to this group as developers. So that is where you manage membership and activities, right? Plan, you can create issues. Now you can create issues. Issues is more like creating a ticket in Jira, right? I can create an issue in GitLab. Now that issue will be based on this, on my project. I can create issues here. I can look at the issues on the board, all right? I can look at the issues on the board. This is similar to a Jira board. So you can create issues and you can open issues and move them here and review them right here. Yeah. Now you can look at your code. When you look at your code, you can create merge requests, repositories, branches, commits, tags, and all this, everything that has to do with your code. Now in GitLab, the difference between GitHub and GitLab, in GitHub, we say pull request. We always create pull request. In GitLab, it is called a merge request. Okay, so that is something that you have to know. If you're talking GitLab, then refer to it as a merge request. When you're talking GitHub, then that is a pull request. But the principle, it is the same thing. You are asking, you want to create an MR, right, to do it. You are proposing, or you are asking if your changes can be merged to another branch. So in GitLab, we use merge request instead of pull request. The pull request is GitHub, right? If you go to your repositories, and again, it's going to take you to your project, right? Your project, your repository. So that is the same thing. You can look at branches. Branches right now, we only have one branch. And so if you had multiple branches, then again, you will see a list of branches here. So you can explore this. If you had any commits, you can explore that. So this is your homepage, right? When you look at build, now this is where your CI or your pipeline is coming. If I want to automate the process, I can build a pipeline. So this is synonymous to Git actions if I'm using GitHub. So I can go to this pipeline section and I can create a pipeline. Now the pipeline here is I can use template. You can either use a template, but GitHub actions or GitLab, they call it GitLab CI. Right? In GitHub, we say GitHub action. In GitLab, it is GitLab CI. And the file that you write it in, it is .gitlab-ci.yml. It is also a YAML. The template file is written in YAML. And it is a hidden file called .gitlab-ci.yaml. So you have to create this file, and it has to be at the root of your directory, meaning it has to be within your directory. In GitHub, we put it in a .github workflows directory. But in GitLab, we just put it at the root of the directory. So it means that if I create this pipeline, let me say a template, I try to create this pipeline like this, just using the test template, right? Test template. It is basically going to live at the root of my directory, of my site. So that is a sample template. It is just a YAML file. It has stages. Then it has you defining jobs. Now jobs are associated with stages. So in GitLab, you list the stages first. So what stages, how many stages do you have in this particular pipeline? So once you have the stages listed, then now you define your jobs. And every job that you define the name of the job, then the stage that it's associated with. So the stage is build. So it means that this job is going to run the build stage. Then the script is now what commands you're going to run within this build stage. Now you define another job, then the stage that it's running, this is test, right? You can do that. So you are defining job and the stages that it's associated. So the workflow is pretty basic, and it has a lot of functionality, especially when you look at how to write or to configure a pipeline or job or syntax within GitLab. It is very easy to write it because everything is YAML and everything is very straightforward. So if I commit the changes, once you commit the changes from your pipeline right there, then your pipeline will start running. It is checking your pipeline. Okay? The pipeline will start running. Once it gives you that, I can go here and look at my pipeline. Now it has created for me this pipeline display, just like we had when we are running GitHub actions. So right now it has 4 jobs. Now these jobs are running in parallel, but this one they're running in series. So it is doing a build job. Now if I go to my build job right here, then it is giving me exactly what it's doing. And it also using runners, same thing as GitHub actions, right? It uses a runner. Now that runner here, it is using a Docker image Ruby, right? It pulls the image, then it runs your work in that particular image. So if I go back to my pipeline here, then I can look at my pipeline again. Then you see the jobs that are running. Okay, running a test job. If I want to rerun it again, I just simply click that. If I want to cancel the pipeline, I'll just cancel it here. So creating a pipeline creating a pipeline in Git actions. It's pretty easy and it's pretty basic, and we will see how you can easily do that. Now, if you go to jobs, it shows you all the jobs that are running within your pipeline, because from our GitLab CI file, we had 4 jobs. So it shows you the jobs and the status. The pipeline editor is where we wrote you can write your SQL file, but you can also schedule pipelines. You can create a schedule. Let's say you want your pipeline to run every day, every week, every month. You can use a cron job, a cron syntax to determine when you want your pipelines to run. So there's a lot of functionality that you can do when you look at your build, right? Security, these are security capabilities, audit, security configuration. Look at security, again, that is that. Deploy, releases. So if I can do a release, I can do a deployment. So like if I'm creating a module and I want to do a release, so I can create a release. I can create a new release based on my repo. I can create a new release. Or if I create a tag, I create a tag. Once I run my code, I merge my code, I can create a tag. And we'll see that I can create a tag. Once I create a tag, it is going to appear in this release section, because that will be a release that you've configured. Now you can deploy to the package registry, container registry, model registry, or pages, right? So all these are things that you can play around with. Monitor, operate is environments. You can create environments. Let's say maybe you want a staging, development environment, or prod environment. You can create environments here. And when you go to deploy, when you go to deployment, you can create a new environment. When you go to deploy, you can select what environment you want to deploy in, or you can configure your pipeline so that it deploys within a specific environment. Okay. We go to settings here, general. Again, this is just a general setting about your project. That is the name. You can put an avatar if you want. You can choose a project avatar for that. You can expand all this, advanced housekeeping if you want to prune, if you want to export that project, if you want to archive the project, right? If you want to change the path of the project, you can change that. Maybe I want this project to be not to be an infra project. I want to transfer this project to the dev workspace or the dev group. So I can use this general to change that, right? I can delete the project. I can delete this repository. So again, go to settings and do that. Integrations, again, you can integrate it with most applications. So if I want to integrate with Datadog, then I can configure this, my GitLab, to be integrated with that. You can create webhooks, access tokens, repositories. You can look at repositories. So within the repositories, it has the default branch, then branch rules. So the default branch, you have your main branch. This main branch, if there is any changes you want to make to the main branch, what are the branch rules? You can create those rules. You can add a branch rule, allow to merge one role, allow to push that, right? You can do a protected branches. Protected branches, right now, we have one protected branch, which is the main, who are allowed to merge to this. So right now, it is only the maintainers that can merge onto this branch. So if the developers or anybody else, they cannot, because it's only the maintainer. But if I select no one, then no one can merge to this branch, right? So if we say developers and maintainers, they can merge. Who can push and merge? So again, who can push and merge? Maybe developers and maintainers. So I'm selecting two roles. So you as a DevOps engineer, maybe this is your first project. There is a team of contractors that have just joined the company, and you are asked, can you configure the GitLab environment for them, right? So that they use. So you will create groups and you will create projects for them. Once you create projects, you will assign the different individuals to the groups and what roles you're giving them. Then you're creating branch protection rules to which particular branch you're protecting. So you can explore all this. Again, CI/CD. This is you can configure your runners. You can put variables within your pipeline. So variables could be like if I have secret and access keys, I want to deploy to AWS, so I can come to variables, CI/CD variables, and I can add variables here, right? I can add variables. The type of variable, environments. I want it to apply to all environments, right? All environments. Otherwise, all environments, or you can select which environment you want that particular variable to be used. So you can pass your key and your value, and you can add the variable, right? The variable type, if it's a file or it's just a default variable. So you can do all that whenever you're configuring pipelines. Okay, so you guys can look at all this. But now, since we've created our repo, we've created our repository. Now, when we are doing development work, right? So let me go back here. Let me go back to my projects. I can access, let's say I'm a member of the infra team. So I go here and I'm working on this project. That's the project that I'm working on. Maybe I've been asked to update the README, right? This is my pipeline. It is at the root of my repo, meaning it is just within the repository, .gitlab ci.yaml. So this is my pipeline, right? Anytime I do a commit or a push, then my pipeline is going to run. Okay. So now with this, I've been asked to make some changes or to add some code, but I know that development, I need to use it. I need to use my local environment to do all that provision. So what I have to do is, if I can bring my editor, I can bring my editor. Yeah. Let me bring my editor here. I just do that. So with this editor here, so what Alex is doing, if you're using item, then I can just split my shell. I can split it horizontally or vertically, and split it like that. So once I split it, I'm gonna have two shells running here like that. So just look at, depending on the IDE that you're using, just look at where you can split the shell, or sometimes it's view, and see how you can split. Or some editors, they have like a window. You can look at the window, how you can split and arrange or move the windows. But for item, normally I would use the shell and just split it. Okay. So now with this here, so the first thing, again, we know that I need to clone the project unless I'm initializing it. But I need to clone this project. Now, if I go here, let me first create a repo or a directory. Let me do make the directory GitLab repos. GitLab repos, or let me call it infra repos. Infra repos. Yeah, infra repos. Then I'll cd into infra repos. Once I cd inside of the infra repos, then if I try to clone this code, right? I try to clone this. I do git clone. And I try to clone this. Right? What is it telling me? It is telling me fatal. It could not read the remote repository. Please make sure you have the correct access rights to this repository. Why? I'm not authenticated. This repository is private. I'm not authenticated to this repo. So how can I connect to this repository? So again, because it's private, and as we all know, with using GitHub, we can do an SSH. We can use SSH to do it, to connect to this particular repository. Now, for us to use SSH, so the first thing we have to do is that we have to generate an SSH key. Right? We have to generate an SSH key that we are going to add to GitLab. So how do we generate an SSH key? Anyone who remembers the command? What command is it?
SSH keygen.
SSH-keygen. What else? We'll pass a type. For GitLab or GitHub, they recommend you use this type 25519, right? 25519. That is the type. Then we can pass the comment, like we can say, what is this key? We can generate this key as GitLab. I can just call it as a GitLab key, right? I can put a comment because I just want to tag it. So I'm generating that key called GitLab key. So once I enter, now if I look at my repo, I know I already have a key with that particular name. So I don't want to override it. So because I use that key for GitHub. So I need to pass the file with a different name that I want to use it. So I can pass it as users can, then it is going to be in the .ssh. Then I'll just pass the name of the key as GitLab key. Okay. I can pass that as GitLab key. So once I enter, it says the GitLab key already exists. Do you want to override it? Yes. Right. Yes. Paraphrase. Enter. Right. So it has generated for me a GitLab key. Now, once I've generated that GitLab key that is there, so if I do cat home.ssh, then GitLab key .pub, I want the public key, right? It has generated for me that key. That is a public key. So what I want to do now is I want to do the configuration. I want to go to my config. Right here. And what I can do is I can run nano home.ssh config. Okay. And what I want to do in this config is I want to add my key to my SSH config. So I can just copy this because this is what I used for GitHub. I can copy that, then scroll down here. And what I'll do is that I'll just paste it here, right? I'll paste it there. So once I paste it there, then I can change this because now this is GitLab. That is GitLab. And the key that I want to add is my private key, which is called GitLab, right? GitLab key. I want to add my private key is GitLab key, right? So I'm going to do that using Wema DevOps. The host name is GitLab. User is Git. Then that is the key. So I'm going to save my config. Control O, save, Control X, right? Then I will start my SSH agent, right? We know this command, so I'll run my SSH agent. Let me just copy that command. Eval SSH, and again, I'll share this notes with you guys. So I'll paste that. Eval, we are starting our SSH agent. Once we start the SSH agent, once we return that our agent is up, then we are going to do it. We are going to add our key. So we're going to add our private key, right? I'm going to do SSH add, SSH add. We are adding this GitLab key, right? Private key. So we are adding it to our agent. So now that key has been added to our agent. Now, once it has been added to our agent, now because we cut this key, we now need to add this public key. We need to add it where? To GitLab. So how do we do that? So we'll come here. We will go to profile. That is your avatar, your profile. You go to edit profile. Edit profile. And once you go to edit profile, let me do this. Maximize it. Once you do edit profile, you come to SSH keys. Go to SSH keys, and you want to add a new key. Okay, add a new key. You can paste that key that you've copied from GitLab. That's the title. You can either give expiration or not. I can leave it optional, so no expiration. Then I can add the key. Okay, now I've added my SSH key to GitLab. So once you've added that key, and the key has been added to your SSH agent. Now I can check whether I have connectivity. Right? I can check whether I can actually connect with GitLab now. So how do I do it? I'll do SSH dash capital T dash T. Then I'll do git at gitlab.com. Right? So I'm trying to see if my SSH agent, if I can actually SSH into my GitLab server. So I can run that command. Then it tells me, welcome to GitLab. Right? So I've been able to make an SSH connection, and that is the user that is because GitLab server is authenticating with my private key, and it realizes that the user in GitLab is at Wema DevOps. So I now have a connection. So now because I have a connection with GitLab, can I clone that repository? Right? So I can run git clone, and once I do that, it is going to tell me git clone, cloning that. Make sure you have the correct access right. Okay, let me see. Let me run that command here, because maybe it's a different terminal. Where I started the SSH agent, I started in a different terminal. So once I do a git clone, I need to cd into infra first. I need to cd into infra. So I'll do cd into infra dash repos, and git clone that. All right. So I was able to cd into infra repos, and I was able to clone that. So if I ls right here, I'll see that I have AWS. If I cd into AWS VPC and I ls, I have my readme, okay, readme. And now with this readme, if I cut readme, right, and then we will see that is the readme file that I have here. That is the readme file that I have here. Okay, that I have here. So we've been able to do it. We've been able to clone. We've been able to set our SSH keys, which is something that we all know. I'm going to share those notes with you guys in a repository. So we've been able to set that up, and now we can do our development work and push it to GitHub. So let me close this. So with this, again, development work. Right now I'm on the main. I can do a git checkout -b. Let me just create a dev branch, right? And then let me do nano test.txt. Then I can say this is a test to GitLab. Right, I can save that. Enter X. I can do a git status. I have that. I can do a git add everything, or test. Then I can do a git commit. I can use a -m message. I can just do first commit. So let's get commits. Right. So I've committed, and then I can do a git push. And once I do a git push, I know that it wants me to set the upstream. So once I do a git push, I can do a git push -u, then origin dev. I want to set that upstream. So you see, I'm able now to push. There's a new branch up in GitHub, right? So if I go now to this branch in my GitHub, now I'll see that I just pushed the dev branch up here. And now what is it telling me? It is telling me that I need to do it. I need to create a merge request. I need to create an MR. So for this MR, I can go create this particular MR, I can give it a title, but otherwise the title will be the same as what I pass as my commit. Now, if I mark it as draft, then it means that it will not be merged into main because it's a draft. So if you're still waiting for code, or sometimes if you want to do a release, maybe a release is supposed to be done tomorrow, but you need to prepare your MR ahead of time. So maybe you do your code, people approve it, they check it. So what you do is that you mark it as a draft. So pipeline will run to test it and check it, everything, but it won't just be merged into main, right? So you can do that. It's until you remove that mark, until you remove this and commit it, that is the only way it will now be merged into main. Okay, so these are features of GitLab. If it's not, if I've unchecked that, then if I commit, if this is approved, it will be committed to the main, right? Then once you're creating your merge request, again, just like GitHub, you will assign, who are you assigning to? If you have your team, you can assign it to the team. Now, right now, I'll just assign it to myself. Then who will review it? I can also assign myself as a reviewer, right? I can assign myself as a reviewer. Then if there is anything, you have your merge options. Do you want to delete the source branch when the merge is accepted? So once you're merging, once I merge the dev branch, then these options says that it will delete the dev branch, because you don't want stale branches. You don't want branches that will just be in GitLab, but branches that have already been merged. Okay, so I can do that. Then I can create a merge request. So once I create a merge request, it is going to look at it. It is going to see if it is mergeable. Now, with that, on this section, it is looking at your merge requests. With that particular merge request, the pipeline was running first. Okay. Once I created that particular branch, your pipeline runs to check. So once the pipeline runs and the pipeline passes, because remember that GitLab pipeline CI is at the root of your repository. So once we do our pipelines will run all our tests. If the pipeline pass, then it will say you are ready to merge. So I can approve it and merge it. Once I merge it, it is going to delete the source branch. It will delete my dev branch. Okay? It will delete that particular dev branch. So now with that, I can approve it. Once I approve it, I click on approve. It is ready to merge. Then I can merge, right? I can merge. Once I merge, it's again giving me all this activity. It's telling me what is happening. You can look at the commits. You can look at the branches. Those are the commits. You can look at right now, because it deleted that. So my code has now been merged. So I can go back here. Once I go back here, now on my main branch, I can see I have a test.txt, right? Test.txt. With that, I only have the main because my dev branch has been deleted. Okay. So once we have that, then I'll come back to here. Now the dev branch here, if I do git branch, I see that I'm still on the dev branch. In my local, I still have 2 branches, but in my remote, I only have 1 branch. So I will do, okay, I'll quit that. Now I need to delete this dev branch, right? So what is the command that I can use to delete the dev branch? What command can I use to delete a branch?
Git branch -d.
-d. So git branch -d.
Yeah, then dev.
Or capital D. Is it that?
Capital D. For now, since it's merged, capital D. Dev.
Okay, so I've deleted that. So if I do git branch, so I have the main. Now, but does my repository, does it know about the upstream? So what now I need to do is I can do git remote -prune. Git remote -prune. Okay, let me see. Git rename. Git branch. Okay, hold on. Git branch. Again, always use your help feature. Always use your help feature if you're not sure of the option. Generic -d delete fully merged branch. -d delete branch even if not merged. Okay, so we use -d if we want to delete a branch even if it's not merged, but we use small d to delete a fully merged branch. Okay, Let's see. Okay, okay, so I guess that's what I was looking for. That does remote. Yeah, so we have our branch delete. So we just use -d to, it's going to delete our branch. But because our pipeline we selected delete branch once it's merged. So that's why we do not have anything to prune, or we do not have a branch to merge in the remote. Okay, we do not have a branch to remote. So with this, GitLab is very easy to use as long as you set up your SSH, then you'll use it the same way you are using GitHub. It is just even easier, because as long as you know the groups, you can just create groups. So let's say you want to create Terraform modules. So I can create a group just for modules, and I know that all my modules, all my AWS modules, all my Terraform modules will live in this group, right? I can create another group for Kubernetes. So if I want a group just for Kubernetes, so all my repositories for manifest files, for my Helm charts, I can create a group for them, and I can create all my repositories there. So it is easier now to find where your repositories are. If I want to see all my Terraform repositories, I just go to the Terraform group. Once I go there, it is going to list for me all the repositories that have to do with Terraform. Okay. Now you can list that. If you're using this for your own personal thing, you can create groups based on the modules that we've covered. Let's say you had Linux and you had repositories for Linux. So you can create a group for Linux. You can create a group for Git, a group for let's say Terraform, a group for Ansible, and every work that you did. So you can categorize them that way. Now, if you want to invite users to collaborate with you just on Terraform, then again, you can invite them and just add them to that group. Yeah. Add them to that particular group. So this is again how easy it is just to use GitLab. If you go to that plus sign, here is when you can create anything. You can create a repository or a project. You can create new subgroups. You can invite team members. So in GitLab, you can, so this is in this group, meaning in the infra group, you can create new projects, subgroups, or invite members. But in GitLab, so I can also create a new project, a new group, or a new snippet. So I can do that if I go home here. Now, within the project, I can create a new group. So if I do this, this is within GitLab. I'm creating a group. But if I'm under group, I go to a specific group, then I can go here, and now within this group, I can create a new repository. Okay, I can create a new repository within the infra group. Okay. The most important thing is set up your SSH. And once the SSH is set up, it'll be good to go. Then you'll just now explore your CI/CD. Explore your CI/CD. So if you go home, you can go to the groups or environments. I go to security dashboard. You go to settings. Go to manage requests, signs. Go to issues. Go to groups. Infrastructure groups. So for that particular group, I can now go to build runners. Again, this is same thing as GitHub. You can create a new runner, or you can do something like this. If I go back to this group, I go to VPC, and I have my GitLab CI right here. It is using a default runner, but I can edit this. I can edit this file here, and I can just pass image. Right? I can pass my image, and I say I want to run this job in a Marvin latest. So it is going to pull a Marvin latest image. Or I can say I want to run it in Ubuntu. So I can pass here Ubuntu latest. So now once I do that and I commit the changes, to that. The good thing is using this pipeline editor, it checks the syntax. As you're editing, as you're creating your pipeline, it is checking and it's telling you if the syntax is correct. If it's not, then it will again show you. So now with that, I'm using a different image. So if I go to my pipeline that are running and I look at it, now my Docker executor, it is now pulling a Marvin latest image, and that's where it is running my job. So with this, I can then create my own image. Maybe it's a Terraform image, just like the image that we created. An image runs Terraform. It has Terraform built in it, right? So now with that particular image, I can go to my runner. And I have committed that image in maybe Artifactory or GitLab. I have passed my variables whereby GitLab is able to pull the image from Docker Hub because I've passed my secret. I've passed my token and the URL. So once I pass my image, and I pass my image here as let's say, maybe I name the image as Terraform. I name the image as Terraform. Terraform. Maybe that was my image as Terraform 1.0. That is my image. So technically, it is now supposed to pull that image, from my repository. The syntax is correct, but let's see if the pipeline will find that particular image. So my pipeline will run, it is checking the status. I can look at the pipeline. Now we see that my pipeline failed, right? Why did it fail? I can look at that. So it goes there, it tries to pull the Terraform image, pulling that, but it failed to pull the image policy, right? It failed to pull this image with specified policies always. Error response from daemon. So pull access denied for Terraform repository does not exist or may require Docker login denied. So we see that I can now configure my image and package it with all the software. So that image becomes my runner. Okay. I create an image, I put Terraform in it, I put Helm in it, I put kubectl, I put Docker, I put anything Vault or CLI in it, because I anticipate that my pipelines will be running a lot of Terraform, or sometimes they have to build Docker images. So I configure all that. I put within that image maybe the AWS CLI to get credentials for AWS. So all that I can build it within the image. I push that image to the repository, and that image now becomes my runner. So if I'm running Terraform workflows, that image will run. If I'm running Docker workflows, then I'm using the same image. And that's how companies do. You configure your runner as a Docker image.